Hello and welcome. We're starting a new series in Mitzvah Hashem, a series that has to do with Kohanim. Kohanim laws. The series would start off with Birkat Kohanim, the laws of Birkat Kohanim, so Kohanim would know exactly how to perform the mitzvah correctly, and then all the laws that Kohanim needs to know, who they're allowed to marry, who they're not allowed to marry, and there are other halachot that have to do in Kohanim. B'zman hazeh, let's start off with the very basic, the mitzvah of Birkat Kohanim that Kohanim Sfaradim perform every day when they go up to the Tahan, and the mitzvah of Kohanim where the Ashkenazim do on the Chagim. Mitzvah of Ilchot Nesiat Kapayim, it's brought down in Shulchan Aruch Horaa, Siman Kuf Kafchet, and it starts off by the fact that one needs to know that it is a mitzvah aseh, it's a positive commandment of the Torah to say Birkat Kohanim, as the Biur Halacha brings down in the beginning from the Sefer Charedim, mitzvah aseh levarech Kohen et Yisrael. There is a mitzvah aseh, and he's not the only one that says so. The Rambam writes this in the end of Ilchot Tefillah, Perk Tetvav Sif Yud. He says, Kol Kohen she'eno עולה לדוכן, אף על פי שביטל מצוות עשה, הרי הוא כעובר על שלושה עשה. So the Rambam openly speaks about violating העשה. It's a positive commandment, same thing the Shulchan Aruch writes in סעיף ב', כל כהן שאין בו אחד מהדברים המעכבים, אם אינו עולה לדוכן, אף על פי שביטל מצוות עשה, הרי זה כעובר בשלושה עשה. Same we learn from the Sifri in the beginning of Parashat Re'eh. It says over there, אין אלא במקדש, only at Bet HaMikdash, that a person might be violating and might have the mitzvah from the Torah. בגבולים מניין, how do you know it's also outside the Bet HaMikdash, whether it is in Eretz Yisrael or חוץ לארץ? תלמוד לומר, בכל מקום אשר אזכיר את שמי, any place that I remind my name, there is such a mitzvah. אם כן, למה נאמר לשום את שמו שם לשכנו תדרשו? לומר במקדש אתה אומר את השם ככתבו, בגבולים בכינויו. There's a difference between מקדש and outside the מקדש. In the מקדש you say the Shem Hashem the way it's written, and outside Beit HaMikdash you say it the way we say it today. And there is still a mitzvah aseh according to all those opinions for a Kohen to go up and say the bracha. And if he doesn't say the bracha, he violates that isur. And the Charedim continues and says over here chidush, that not only that a Kohen has that mitzvah, but also Israel have that mitzvah. שנאמר, for a Kohen, כה תברכו את בני ישראל, וישראל עומדים פנים כנגד פני הכהנים בשתיקה. עם ישראל that are standing to receive the bracha, how do you receive the bracha? You stand פנים כנגד פנים, as we're going to learn in these halachot, and they quiet to receive the bracha, מכוונים ליבם לקבל ברכתם כדבר השם, הם נמי בכלל המצווה. They're also part of that mitzvah, and the question is how and where do we found that Israel would be part of the Birkat Kohanim? In the Dirshu he brings down Machloket Achronim, what the Charedim means. The Aflaa in Ktuvot says that the mitzvah is not only for the Kohanim, it's a Kohanim and Israel. It's a unity that between the Mevarech and the Mitbarech, and the both Bichlal HaMitzvah, which means they're also part of the mitzvah aseh. Although it says Ko tevarchu et bnei Israel, but Am Israel that are mitbarchim are also bichlal habracha. But a nice hesber from the Mari Asad that they bring over here is that not that there is a mitzvah of Israel to be part of that mitzvah. V'dayin mitzvah aseh leIsrael litbarech. There's no such mitzvah aseh, but the fact that they help out the Kohanim can't perform the mitzvah without Israel helping them out, because if they don't have Israel, who are they going to bless? So therefore, the fact that they're helping the Kohanim perform their mitzvah is also puts them into a category of Mesayah Lidvar Mitzvah, and it's considered like doing a mitzvah. Just like we found this idea, this concept, in the Ran in Kiddushim, when the Gemara says that there is a mitzvah for a woman to be mitkadesh, and the Ran adds over there, but the mitzvah of Pur Vu is not on a woman, is on men. A man is chayav in Pur Vu of having children. A woman is not chayav in that mitzvah. So why is it that we're saying that there is a mitzvah for a woman? Says the Ran, since the woman helps out her husband to perform the mitzvah, she also receives a mitzvah for that. Which means a person that can't perform the mitzvah without the help of other is also receives the reward as performing a mitzvah and misayeh, helping out with the mitzvah. Same thing over here. And therefore, one needs to know that there is a mitzvah taseh for Israel to say, to receive the bracha, and for Kohen to give over the bracha. But that's only if you have the entire dinim that the halacha would bring over here. And that's what we start off with halacha aleph, ונשיאת כפיים בפחות מ10 והכהנים מן המניין. You need to have, first of all, 10 people in the shul in order to say the Birkat Kohanim. Now you don't have to have 10 Israel. It could be that part of them are Israel and part of them are Kohanim, but you have to have 10 people. And if you don't have 10 people, you can't perform that mitzvah. Either because, as the Biur Halacha says, it's davar shebekdusha, like Kaddish, Baruch Hu, Kedusha, those things are davar shebekdusha. You need to have 10 people to be able to say them, because kol be'asara shchina sharia, which means a Kadosh Baruch Hu shchina goes down to the place when you have 10 people. If you don't have 10 people, you're not allowed to say it. Or the Ran says that it's not because of davar shebekdusha, rather we have Ezra shava, that you need to have 10 people, as it says, Ko tevachu et bnei Israel, and it says in another place, V'nikdashi b'toch bnei Israel, so we see Ezra shava, same word, we learn from the same word, in bnei Israel, that you need to have 10 people in order to be able to say the bracha. Now the Kohanim are from the minyan, and the Mishnah Berurah adds over here, לפי שהכהנים גם כן בכלל הברכה, interesting insight. The Kohanim are not only giving over a bracha, but they're not receiving the bracha. No, the bracha is given to the Kohanim as well when they give over the bracha, which means giving over a bracha, blessing the nation, blessing the people. Those Kohanim perform a mitzvah taseh, we just explained, which is really one of three. In other words, three that combine to one, as we're going to learn in Sa'if Beit. Israel do the same thing. They receive a bracha, and they're also part of that mitzvah. How is it that Kohanim receive a bracha? They're given the bracha. Says the Mishnah Berurah, לפי שהכהנים גם כן בכלל ברכה, מדכתיב ואני אברכם. כלומר לכהנים. They give the bracha, כה תברכו, ואני אברכם. I will give them the bracha. That bracha that they give over, they receive from me. And therefore, Kohen needs to take that seriously, because he's performing a mitzvah taseh and he's also receiving the bracha. This is the Shulchan Aruch. And נשיאת כפיים פחות מ10 והכהנים מהמניין. Now the Rama adds over here that is for the Kohen, but a zar means anybody who's not a Kohen. Israel is called a zar, stranger to Kehuna. He's not allowed to do נשיאת כפיים. Why? Because it says כה תברכו אתם ולא זרים. You're not allowed to do נשיאת כפיים. אליו הבא מכלל עשה. Now the Bach explains that this isur would be only if Israel does actually נשיאת כפיים. And he says that there is a Gemara in Shabbat ק"ח עמוד ב', אמר רבי יוסי מימיי לא עברתי על דברי חבריי. I never violated, I never passed on what my friend told me to do. I always did what my friend told me to do. I always complied. And he says, Rav Yossi, יודע אני בעצמי שאיני כהן. I know I'm not a Kohen. Testifies Rav Yossi on himself. But still, אם אומרים לי חבריי, עלה לדוכן, אני עולה. But if my friends would tell me, go to the דוכן, say ברכת כהנים, I would listen to them. So how is it possible, says the Bach, that he violates the Arzei? You're not allowed to listen to your friend and violate the Arzei. Even if your father tells you to violate something in the Torah, you're not allowed to listen to him, although there's a positive commandment to listen to your parents and fear them as well. But you're not allowed, if they tell you to violate the Torah, it says the Torah, אני השם, איש אמו ואביו תיראו, אני השם, את שבתותיי תשמרו, אני השם. If your father, your mother tell you to violate the Shabbat, or any other mitzvah in the Torah, or even the Rabbanan, or even minagim, אני השם, they have to honor me as well, and therefore you have to listen to me before you listen to them. So how is it that Rav Yossi would listen to his friends over what the Torah says, that you're not allowed, you're not a Kohen, you're not allowed to go up? So he says, צריך לומר, רב יוסי לא כאמר אלא לעלות לדוכן ולעמוד שם. בלא נשיאת כפיים, כלל, ואף לא לברך, which means, Rav Yossi would only listen to them to go up to the דוכן, to go up and stand there, but he would not say נשיאת כפיים, he would not say the ברכת כהנים, he would not do נשיאת כפיים at all. And therefore, the Mishnah Berurah would bring this להלכה, and say that if a person does such a thing, is not violating at all. פשיטא שאין כאן איסור עשה כלל, היא לא מכוון כלל למצווה, רק שלא לעבור על דברי חבריו שחשבו שהוא כאן ואמרו לו לעלה לדוכן. פשיטא שאין כאן איסור עשה כלל, if you don't actually do the ברכת כהנים. נראה לי כל זה דווקא למאי דקיים על המצוות צריכות כוונה. Obviously, this would follow, says the Mishnah Berurah, only if you hold that mitzvot צריכות כוונה, which means when you do such a thing, you have to have intention to be יוצא. So the Mishnah Berurah would learn that actually over here he would say the bracha with an intention not to be יוצא. דאילאו אחי אינו מותר רק דווקא אם מכוון בפירוש שלו לשם מצווה. According to the opinion that hold מצוות צריכות כוונה, therefore he needs to uproot the כוונה, that what he's doing is not for the purpose of the mitzvah at all. So he brings like this, עיין בבח שכתב, דווקא עם נשיאת כפיים. When is a Kohen violating the Isur? Only if he picks up his hands, he does נשיאת כפיים. ואפילו if he doesn't say the ברכה אשר קידשנו במצוותיו וציוונו בקדושתו של אהרון וציוונו, which means without the ברכה that you say before the ברכת כהנים, just by the fact that you're picking up your hands, נשיאת כפיים, that's already אסור. אבל אם מברך ברכת כהנים, בלא נשיאת כפיים, let's say it just says the ברכת כהנים, מברך השם וישמרך יאר השם פניו אליך וכונקה, he doesn't violate the עשה at all. That's what he writes over here. Pri Magadim holds that there is a Isur. That's what we said over here. It could be that according to the Bach, he just went of Yossi and stood over there. Oh, that's the only way that one would violate. The Mishnah Berurah continues and says that maybe another pshat, and that is only if you have intention for the mitzvah. But without an intention, you're not violating any Isur. But b'chol ofen, the way it comes out over here is that for a zar, somebody who's not a Kohen is not allowed to do and to perform mitzvat birkat kohanim at all. The Biur Halakha deals with a question, how is it possible that on Erev Shabbat Kodesh, many parents do birkat kohanim, they put their hands on their children's head and say birkat kohanim, Yevarcha Hashem ve'yishmerecha, part of the bracha that we say of Yesimcha Elohim, Ke'efraim Chimnashe, and so on. So they say that as well. How is it possible? Biur Halakha deals with that, but we learned over here that there is a mitzvah taseh for a Kohen to be mevarech, there is a mitzvah taseh for Israel to be mitbarech, there is a blessing, a bracha that a Kohen gives to the Israel, and he himself receives a bracha from HaKadosh Baruch Hu himself, va'ani avarechem. Those are the main points of this Shay.